All right, so welcome to this Q&A. Again, want to welcome to this Q&A. A few things came in, similar topics, and I think we'll hit both of them. I would say, common topics for, um, for this time, and that is that the test of the generation before the Messiah comes. The test is going to be um, the test is going to be in what? In Amuna. Um, Now, that being said, what happens? What happens? The person gets tested, right? And that's what we get tested on a regular basis. And the Ramchal says we always bring down that we're in this world to toil, right? To be tested. Sometimes the test seems to be absolutely impossible. Sometimes the test seems to be cruel. Sometimes what we see, is cruel. So to make sense out of it, some will say, and this comes up all the time, well, I must have an evil eye. Right? We spoke about that. I spoke about that on Tuesday. So again, if it's something, let's just make clear, if a number of things happen above nature, like in a short amount of time, I could hear. Someone, may have an evil eye, or whatever the case, whatever the case may be. But anything that happens, something breaks down. Normal usage, yeah, normal usage. That's not an evil eye, unless you have like 10 things break down at the same time. Right? If it's normal usage, then it's normal usage. You're supposed to take a loss. Right? If it's something out of the ordinary, something a person would never imagine. Right? In other words, it's above nature. And it shouldn't happen. Right? According to nature, it shouldn't happen. Yeah, that I could hear as being, something where, maybe it's an evil eye. Because things that are above nature don't normally happen. Shouldn't happen. Now, doesn't necessarily mean it's an evil eye, it's something to think about. But if it's normal wear and tear, even if life, gets extremely difficult, let's say, a lot of people suffering today, right? In general, not just from, health issues, plenty of people suffering from health issues. But even without health issues, what's probably the number one thing people having difficulty with livelihood? Now, sometimes better, sometimes worse, right? Sometimes people have it easier, right? Sometimes not. Okay. But if everyone is more or less in the same boat, yeah, it's still a challenge. No one's saying it's not a challenge, right? The question is, how am I supposed to look at it? You can say, oh, I might have done this, I might have done that, I might have done the other thing. Yeah, maybe. Maybe, so we got to be better at whatever we do. That's true. But if everyone is going through a similar challenge, let's say in that field, or let's say in other fields, does that mean the person has an evil eye? I don't mean that, right? I wouldn't necessarily call that out. Person lives in a place with a recession. You're going to say that's my fault? Why is it my fault? The person puts their best foot forward. Very good. Right? They put their best foot forward. So you do what you can do. That's it. But people forget, very quickly, I'm in this situation. Yeah, you might have done it to yourself. Maybe not. Or God's putting you in a situation. Or Mr. is putting you in that situation. So now the question is, how am I looking at it? right? But what's the most important thing they're thinking about more than anything else, right? More than anything else, survival. That's what people were thinking about. I have to survive, right? Right? And at some point, things are going to change. Why are they going to change? Because no one stays down forever. A recession is not forever, right? But on the other hand, yeah, people could lose a lot. See what happened during COVID. People lost a lot, right? People lost everything. Okay, right? Sometimes you can't survive. Sometimes that's what you have to go through, right? I was just reading something recently from Rabbi Meilich Biederman, should be well. And he wrote a number of things, number of stories, one after another, where what looked bad, it wasn't, in the end wasn't bad. Yeah. In other words, he was saying that something that looks good may not be good, may turn out bad. And something that's bad doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, it could turn out good. So, an example, someone was a wagon driver, and, he did all right. He had one horse, and guess what happened? The horse left. Horse went out for greener pastures, ran away. So he's home. What's he going to do? He can't make money, he doesn't have a horse. Yeah? He got no way to make money now. Yeah, people try to console him and this and that. And he says, it's not going to turn out bad. It's going to be good. Right? Because whatever God does is for the good. So people thought he was like, out of his mind. Right? He became deranged. So what happened, this story, the horse was out. And guess what? It got hungry. It was out, among other horses, right? Other horses, I don't know. Whatever it was, they happened to be there, or he found them, they found this horse, whatever it was. All these horses got together. And this horse, was being taken care of. So this horse, what happened? Got hungry. No food around. So what did the horse do? Came back home. Right? Came back to the barn. Because now it's gonna have, it's gonna have food, it's gonna be taken care of. Right? Very good. But guess what? He took 4 other horses with him. So these horses were hefker, ownerless. So basically, they followed this horse. So this person said, oh, look, really bad. Because I lost my one horse. I couldn't do any business. Now I got 4. So it wasn't really bad. Right? It looked bad. It wasn't bad. It wasn't. So, that was one story. Right? He told a bunch of other stories. Even if something, another story, it's actually part of the same story. His son got injured. Oh, yeah, because he had all these horses. So his son thought, okay, I'll ride a different horse every day. Right? Very good. Yeah, have some fun on these horses. But he didn't know these horses at all. Right? So he said, I'll try out these horses. Whatever. And one of the horses, wasn't used to having someone on his back. So he threw him off. Well, he didn't just throw him off. Threw him off in such a way he landed, he broke both his legs. Right? He's in the hospital, came home, can't do anything. Right? It's gonna take a long time to heal. Well, guess what? So at that time, right, he was in Russia, wherever he was, and they were they're looking for, for guys for the army, and he was army age. So they come to the house, knock on the door. They see him laying up in bed, can't move. Right? Can't move. So they left. Nothing to do. It's injured. Not that stupid. They're not gonna, not gonna take someone, train him in the army and all that, for the fact that he can't move. Right? So again, here's something that looked bad. Seemingly was bad. No one wants to have any broken bones. Right? So this guy had, 2 broken legs. Okay, painful, can't move, right? Can't do very much, right? It's going to take a while, to heal. Very good, but guess what? Saved his life because people, his age, in his city, they took in, they all died. So it's a question of perspective. We don't have the perspective, right? Right? It's a pretty amazing thing. Pretty amazing thing. You think about it. But how do we view it? How are we going to view it? We're going to say, come on, it's bad. It's really hard. It's impossible. Okay. Right? Maybe it is. But where's the silver lining? Right? That's the question. Where's the silver lining? So someone will say, I've never seen it, it'll never happen. Now, we always say, Yeshua Hashem Ke'erfayim. God can change anything in the blink of an eyelash. If God can change anything in the blink of an eyelash, then things can change. Maybe it won't change today, maybe not tomorrow, right? Maybe not tomorrow, very good, right? So even if it doesn't change today, tomorrow, doesn't mean it won't. 100% doesn't mean it won't, right? So if that is the case, then a person can say, okay, right? Then we'd ask the question, so what's so bad? Why do we look at it so bad? Because the person's suffering and the person's in pain. And when a person's in pain, they don't see the bigger picture. They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, it could take time. It could take a lot of time. A person can feel a lot of pain. Very good. It doesn't mean it's going to stay there. Right? And there was a story also that, I was learning something earlier. Interesting that the Torah, this week's Parsha Mishpatim, speaks about a lot of, laws of damages. Right? So we believe that, God's judgment is truth. 100% we believe it's truth. Now, someone has din Torah, someone took him to Beis Din for, accusing of different things. And the person lost. The person lost in court. He goes to Rav and he says, I don't understand. All the ways the Torah are true. How can it be? I have an ironclad case. There's no possible way in Beis Din I should have lost. No possible way. So how do you reconcile that? How is it possible if I'm really not guilty, right? For argument's sake, he wasn't guilty. Beis Din found him guilty, whatever, and he had to pay, whatever it was. They had to take a loss. But he said that's not the way it should be. That's not what the truth is in the Torah. Right? Because was talking about where the Torah says, I'll take a bribe. Right? Now, what does it mean to take a bribe? Who's it talking about? It's talking to a rabbinic court judge. Right? Anyone takes a bribe, someone's a rabbinic court judge, someone did a favor for them. They did a favor for them. Litigant comes up in front of them in court in whatever case. If the person cannot look at that person as being guilty, potentially being guilty for the fact that they did a favor for them, they can't judge the case. It's forbidden in that case to judge it. Now, if that's true, I have a case. Now, if there's a mistake made, then it depends where the mistake is. If it's a mistake, they missed something obvious, then okay, they have to pay the damages. If it's a mistake in something else, they may not have to pay, but that's not even the point. The point is what happened. They judged the case the way they saw it, and he was guilty. Right? He was guilty. Now, what does it mean taking a bribe over here? It means a person could see things one way, and they get blinded. But how's that the truth? Right? That's the question. How could it be true? If seemingly it's a mistake. Very good. So the answer was very interesting. The answer is that you're right. Maybe according to your case, you should have won the case. right? Maybe 100% you should have won the case. But what happened? What happened? Your soul had to pay back money based on what it did before. Since it had to pay back money what it did before, so your soul now came back, and now we're gonna fix it up. Now it had to be fixed up. So what happened? What happened? You had to pay. So really, both things are true, right? There's not a contradiction over here. Why not? Because Torah obligates this person to pay. In the previous life, he didn't pay, right? He didn't have, whatever. He didn't pay. Did something wrong, you need to pay, he didn't pay. Okay. So now, measure for measure, what's going to happen? That soul has to come back. That soul has to come back, let's say. It's got the ability to come back. And that soul's going to have to fix up what it did. Right? There has to be a fixing up process here. So what does God do? God puts the person in a situation where they're going to end up paying. Are you going to tell me right now, really, according to Torah, he shouldn't have to pay? He shouldn't be guilty. Very good. Right? You tell me he shouldn't have to pay. But in this case, why does he have to pay? Because of what happened before. So everything's meted out in the right way. Even the way it looks, we don't understand. Right? So again, we're not saying where the rabbinical court judges made, a horrific mistake, and they're going to have to pay, et cetera. We're not talking about that. That's not the case. Case is they called it the way they saw it. Even though this person said they were wrong, right? And they misjudged the case, right? But that's not misjudging because that person had to take the loss. We're not, again, but, you could say, let's say the basin's corrupt. And there are basins, unfortunately, that are corrupt, right? But let's say even in such a case, this is what someone would say, this is a miscarriage of justice. An absolute miscarriage of justice. There's no way they could have won. Basin's corrupt. Okay. Right? Now let's say that's the case. And they're guilty, and they should have to pay the fine. But what happens? They make the other person pay. Now, if they make the other person pay and the person's screaming, left and right, it's not fair, it's not this, it's not that, right? But they end up paying. They have to pay. What's going on? You're going to think, well, it's their bad luck. No. Right? Someone points out there are no coincidences. Good. There are no coincidences. Right? But why do they have to pay and go through that? So I can't answer why they have to go through it. But the bottom line is, God wants them to pay. And their soul has to pay. So God arranges it like that. Right? He's going to arrange it like that they get stuck through this. And because of that, they have to pay. So you're going to, it's not fair, this and that. Okay. The way we see it, it looks really bad. The way God sees it is, person's guilty. Person's guilty, they have to pay. How God gets the money out of them? Good question. God is going to get the money out of them. However he has to do it. And it can be done in a horrific way. It can be done in a corrupt way. It doesn't matter. It can be done in any way. But what happens? This person has to pay. So if he has to pay, see, we don't understand it. We see it as, that's not really fair. You shouldn't have to go through that. Why does the person have to lose money? Because he had to lose. See, no one wants to hear that. But he had to lose. So how's he going to lose money? How's God going to do it? However he does it. But the loss was he had to take it. Now, take it one step further. Even if that's the case, a person can say, well, I didn't do anything to deserve it. It must be my soul has to go through it. Maybe. Maybe that's the case. Or maybe the person did something they don't remember, or they do remember, it doesn't matter. Right? They're going to pay. They will pay at some level in this world. So whether you did it to yourself or it's because of what your soul has to go through, you deserved to lose the money. And it can happen in many, many different ways. Many, many different ways. People, I just heard a story recently. I don't really know the details, but a person, struggling financially, got scammed. I mean, I don't think they lost a ton of money, but whatever. They got, they weren't careful for whatever reason. They got scammed. So they lost the money. So why should they lose money? Yeah, it's like the worst thing. It's like, a person's down, they're having difficulty, and then this happens. Say like this is like nail, it's like the last nail in the coffin. Like you feel like, you're on your knees and this and that. Then someone scams you. Yeah, again, it doesn't have to be significant money, but if you don't have any money and you get scammed, it's worse. It's worse. And the person feels guilty. How could I let it happen? This and that. But what's the bottom line? God wanted you to lose money. Now, does it matter how it happens? People say yes. Absolute matters. Right? We'll give an example. You take someone like Bernie Madoff, right? So many people invested with this guy. He looked to be totally trustworthy. Ponzi scheme. The whole thing was a Ponzi scheme, right? So now you got, institutions, you got people, but they trust. You had a good level of trust with a lot of people, right? Some people actually made money, with him. And a lot of people lost a lot with him because he couldn't pay everything back. He's paying one to pay the other to this, that, and he got caught. Right? Eventually, he got caught. Now, even something like that, how could I fall in? Right? How could that happen? And what's the answer? Because God wants you to lose. It's just a question of how you're going to lose it. Right? In other words, person can put money in something that seems like so solid, everything now. I'm saying, a lot, a little, doesn't really matter, right? They put something in, they think that, they're going to get this, that, and the other thing, and everything looks good on paper, and everything's beautiful. And what happens? It goes up. You're going to say, I do my research right. How'd you miss it? Not a question you missed anything. God wanted it to happen, right? I know someone had a franchise of a treif restaurant, or it wasn't really a restaurant. It's more like it was like a takeout place. Let's say could have been a restaurant also, whatever. So obviously forbidden for a Jew to make money that way. But even so, right? At one store was doing very good, very very well. So got advice. What was the advice? You're doing so well. Open up another one. Double the money. Why not? Right? So people gave advice. They looked into a certain area. Check things out. I don't know exactly how they check things out. Whatever it was. So okay, we'll put another franchise there. Put another store there. The first store was doing very good. For whatever reason, this store wasn't doing so well. But not only wasn't it doing so well, what happened? They sucked a lot of money into it, and then the first store didn't recover, and then the whole thing went under. So to this day, this person's still rip roaring mad, got bad advice. Okay. I wasn't there part of the conversation what the advice was. I don't know if it would have mattered anyway. And what this person did, he got advice. He got advice. He took the advice. Okay. It went south. It went south, the person lost everything. Now, what happened? God wanted him to lose. But how did God get him to do it? How did God take away the money? Right? Because obviously we're believing that, there are no coincidences. So how did it happen? So he gets convinced, because the store is doing well. So he gets convinced to open another one. Very good. Yeah, got to make double the money more. Eventually, open more franchises, be a billionaire. Very good. So he gets sucked in, right? He gets sucked in to do it. And seemingly he gets good advice. And what was, everything looks great, right? That's exactly what Rabbi Biederman said. Something can look very good. Yeah, what happens? Flops. Totally flops. Now, why did it flop? Big F, why did it flop? Because God wanted to flop. God wanted the person to lose, right? But how is he going to get the money out of the person? How is he going to get him to do it and put him in that situation or put her in that situation? How is he going to do it? So give him advice. Get some gurus, give them advice. Yeah, it's a great idea. It's a great location. It should do very well. It starts slow. It should be fine. They got convinced. Very good. They know better than me. They're more into business than me. Okay. It's worth the risk because they're doing well. And guess what? They got flattened like a pancake. Right? So what's Biederman teaching? He's teaching that what looks bad in the end can certainly turn out good. And what looks good and looks very good, can turn out bad. Now, there's only one problem. The problem is, how do I know if it's good, it's going to turn out bad? And the answer is you don't. You put your best foot forward. You check, a lot of different things, right? To make sure. Again, that's not a guarantee, right? That's a big mistake. Brothers say, okay, everything looks beautiful. This should happen, that should happen, the other thing. Yeah, a lot of things should happen. Is it going to happen? Good question. A lot of things we see, could go one way, could go the other way. But on paper, let's say, looks ironclad. Looks ironclad. So if it looks ironclad and it looks very good, does it mean it'll turn out good? No. I don't it's not a guarantee, right? But, should a person, well, if it looks too good to be true, right? So yeah, people promising you the moon, you're going to say, yeah, this will happen. People do all kinds of marketing for that, get people to buy things and they never work, right? Most of them don't work, but they'll promise you, good revenue and very little work, right? So yeah, it's a catch-22. Very big catch-22, right? And yeah, person should be leery, unless other people have done it, and it can work, right? And it does work, right? If you have testimonials, real testimonials, from real people, and they say, yeah, I've done it. It started off slow, but this happened, that happened, the other thing happened. Very good, right? Very good. So, okay, right? On the other hand, right? If it looks too good to be true, then it probably is, right? Then it's probably no good, right? Now, something's got potential. Let's say you got a project, it's got potential, it's got real potential. Now, the question is it going to go? Is it really going to go like they think or not? Right? So I've been taking a survey, on this. My assumption would be things that people probably didn't expect to go went, and things that they really thought were going to go, maybe they did go, right? Maybe they did, and they were very successful. Or maybe they weren't as successful, but it took time and then they built it or whatever, right? You don't know. See, that's the worst thing. You're in doubt, right? Nothing worse than being in doubt. But if you see something that looks very good, right? Across the board, it looks good. Investors, building it, marketing, this, like all kinds of things look very good. I mean, it's going to, start overnight. It might, right? But, it's going to take time to build and whatever. But, in the bigger scheme of things, it looks very good. Now, I guess, where's the trap? Where's the trap? Does the person have to think that? Now, if a businessman thought that way, they'd never get involved in anything. Now, sometimes they'll be more successful. Sometimes they'll be less successful. Sometimes they won't be successful, right? But there are factors sometimes people don't take into account. Or everything looks good. They took in all the factors and something else happened, right? Something else happened. Let's say they were building something. Things are going. Things look, things are moving the way they should, and COVID hits. COVID just stops them in their tracks. Yeah, or, right, even better, their business was going well, right, and been going well for a while, and then COVID hit, or something else happened, right, or there are bigger tariffs now. Now the margin of how much money they're going to make is going to be less, right? Or it's going to be harder because now it's more expensive, right? So if they were if they were getting by because they were getting cheap material, and now the material is going up and they don't have another place to get it, it's going to take away from the profits, might suck up the profits, right? So, yeah, there are a lot of factors involved. See, people think, yeah, I do this in business, I do that in business. All things being equal, they look at all the, all the angles, and what do they say? Yeah, it should go, right? And let's say it does, or let's say it takes time or whatever it is. What's going to happen? There are things you didn't expect along the way. There are things you didn't expect that you couldn't have suspected. You're going to say, well, every little thing you're going to be blinded. Again, you're going to put your best foot forward, right? Before a person's going to, fork over money for something, they're going to look. They're going to see the books, if there are any books to look at. They're going to see what the track record is. They're going to see what the competition is. I mean, they're going to, anyone who buys anything of value, is going to put money down and just say, okay, I'll just buy this one, or I'll just buy that one. People are going to do that, right? Because, things cost money, especially, person buys a house, let's say. They buy a house. Everything looks good on the inside, let's say. But, a person buys a property, what are you going to do? An inspection. Again, realtors can tell you things, the owners can tell you things. You don't know if they're really telling the truth, they're really exaggerating, not exaggerating. There are problems they haven't told you about, right? Remember, a person goes in to buy something. If a person's buying as is, your responsibility to check things out, right? 100%. Yeah, and if it's something, see, this is the whole question. If someone's selling the property, are they obligated to tell what the problems are? So if it's something that's obvious, I remember, I was renting an apartment, and one wall was like totally black from mold. Yeah, so someone comes in, and look at the apartment. Now, if it's something obvious and they miss it, and no one says anything, but it's something obvious, they can't come back later and say, "Hey, you fooled me. I thought this black stuff was something else. I think it was mold." Well, you should check it out, right? Is that the obligation of the tenant to say anything? No. Should they? Well, that's a good question, because the owner can say, "Listen, just don't say anything." They don't have a right to say this. They have no right to say, "Well, if someone comes to look at the apartment, don't say anything about that." What do you mean? Right? You're fooling people. But that's not the case, because it's something obvious, right? So people came in, they would see this room and they'd say, "Wow, like, what is that?" So I would say, "What does it look like?" So, "Well, it looks like mold." I said, "Yeah, maybe, probably is." Right? Just check it out. So, obviously it's not forbidden, but if they make a mistake and they don't check it out, right? they don't check it out. Of course, it's their own fault. It's caught in 615 commandment. Don't be a moron. You didn't check it out. Now, what happens? You bring an inspector. Inspector checks it out. Everything seems good, right? And then, after they buy whatever, they find the problem with the foundation. But they checked it out. They can't go back to the owner and say, "Hey, you didn't tell me it's a foundation problem." They said, "I didn't know there was let's say they didn't know. Let's say they didn't know it was a foundation problem." Okay. Isn't that what an inspector should do? You go to Mickey Mouse inspector and he misses that. That's, that's pretty bad, right? Someone who knows what they're doing, they should be able to figure, they should be able to see that. They should be able to. Yeah. So, in such a case, can you know everything? Every little thing? No. You can ask a lot of questions, right? You should ask a lot of questions. One of the questions, I asked, this is a ground floor apartment where I am, and we had a problem in another apartment. There were three, I don't know what you call them in English. There, a lot of the building where all the waste goes, there were like manholes, I guess. So there were like 3 in the apartment itself, like for the building. So anytime there was like, something got, stuck or whatever, so either we got the problem or someone else normally got the problem. Well, then they found there's a problem with one of the pipes. One of the pipes was cracked, so that stuffed things up. So I had a problem like almost, I wouldn't say on a weekly basis, almost. It was a crazy thing till it got fixed. So, and this ground floor apartment it's also got like one of these. It's got 2 of them, I think. 2 of them in my garden. 2 of them in my garden. So we asked the owner, have you ever had any problems? Like anything? Like we had problems all the time. We kept the plumber like in good business. Gave him good business. Crazy. But I said, did you ever have any problems? That's the first thing we asked. Did you ever have any problems? With things getting plugged up. It says they were there like 8 years. They said no. But no, they had once they had something, but it wasn't whatever. It had nothing to do with that. But they never had a problem. Never had a problem. So that was pretty important to ask, right? Because I got stuck before. Like I had before, but I had 3. I had 3 of these things. In the apartment itself. Again, until I left, then the whole problem was fixed. But I was like, for a while, I got stuck with this. Got stuck with this problem. But again, so you have to ask. You have to ask. And you have to look around also. You got to see if there's mold. You got to see other things. You got to find out about the neighbors. What are the neighbors like? And what's the street like? These are certain things you have to ask. If you don't ask, you say, okay, you're gonna take it or whatever. So, you can't complain later if you didn't look into certain things. But also, there's a question if something is hidden. You only find out about it later. Yeah. Question is, was the owner obligated, to say something? There's another apartment I lived in. There was a leak in a pipe, right? So it made one of the, whatever, one of the walls certainly looked bad because of it. So whatever, they understood that, to get it, they got it fixed. And they fixed up a whole bunch of things. Well, they understood that's what they're going to have to do. It took up part of the price, whatever it was. Whatever it was. But, I'm not saying you have to be an absolute expert per se, but you got to know what to look for. You got to know what to ask. You got to know what to ask. But if a person, let's make clear. If a person missed something obvious, if you missed something obvious, you missed it. You can't come back later and say, you didn't tell me. You said, they come back and say, you didn't see the mold on the wall? I had to tell you that? I have to tell you that. It's obvious. Right? The luck is you missed something obvious. The other person can say, yeah, this is the problem and I'll take off the price. I mean, could say that, but then, making it hard to sell. Right? Even so. But again, you have to, you have to see, if you walk into a building, let's say, we're going to rent a building for something, right? Whatever it is, you walk in, a lot of space, tremendous amount of space. Yeah. But you see wires hanging out all over the place, right? They ripped out all the wires before they left. Yeah. So, right. That's pretty obvious. If you're going to take it, it's going to take work, right? So, you can, on something like that, you see a lot of issues. Let's say there are a whole bunch of issues, but to the person looking at it, they're interested in it. Very good. They can say, listen, we're interested in taking this long term. Very good. This place needs a ton of work. This place needs a ton of work. Now, the person renting it, they're not going to do the work for it. They're not putting the effort in. They want to rent it or they want to lease it or whatever. Good. Yeah. So everything, when it comes to real estate, everything's negotiable. So you say, listen, all the wires are ripped out of the walls. they're like, you want me to pay that kind of money with all the wires ripped out of the walls? And you got to refix it, redo it, redo all the wiring. Okay. I'd be willing to redo with the wires. You take off $10,000 for it, or you take off $5,000 for it. Yeah, so you negotiate it. If they're not willing to take any money off, so then you got to decide if you want to do it or not. And there are people that will take, they'll take things, people with rehabbers, right? They'll take things that are, that need a lot of work, and they understand they need a lot of work. So they'll put they understand they'll put in the work. They'll hire people to do it, and then they'll flip it, and then they'll sell for a lot more, right? So great, right? But normally in real estate, just the general rule is normally there are two things. Two things we're looking at real estate. One is, because I was involved in real estate, one of them is price and conditions. You don't normally get both, right? Getting both, you're a pig. You don't get both normally, right? In other words, either you get your price, you want your price or close to your price, very good, right? So either you get your price or you get conditions, right? Now, conditions can be better than the price. Right, you're being willing to pay more, but you got better conditions. Okay. Normally, unless the person's like absolutely desperate to sell, normally you don't get both. No, it normally doesn't work like that. But again, the point is you got to look into it. Right? You have to cover to the best of your ability. You have to cover all your bases. Right? That's what you got to do. Now, if you miss things, right, and this is really the point, if you miss things that were obvious, that's your fault. But in the bigger scheme of things, why'd you miss it? You say you were careless, should have looked into it, other things, good. But why did you miss it? What's the reason? Very simple. God wanted you to miss it. Period. He wanted you to miss it. Why did he want you to miss it? Because he wanted you to pay more for it. He wanted you to take a loss somehow. So, again, anything a person's going to do, they're going to buy, yeah, you got to do your due diligence. And if a person buys something as is, realize they're not going to be perfect. They're not going to be in perfect shape, right? But you have to do due diligence. That's why they give 30 days. Usually, buy a house. They give you 30 days, if you're going to buy it. Because you want to inspect it, you want to take a look, you want to ask other people, whatever. You got 30 days to do due diligence. What's in the neighborhood, what, other things that have happened, right? Whatever it is, whatever it may be. But the point is, even after all that, you did everything possible, right? In the case of Yaakov and Lavan, Yaakov did everything possible to make sure he didn't get swindled, right? He told Rachel, don't worry, I swindled my brother, I'm not worried about your father. And she turned against him. She felt bad for her sister, and he ends up with his sister instead of her, right? Now, why did that happen? Why did that happen? Yaakov understood. They did everything that is possible not to get swindled, and he got swindled, right? And the obvious question is, if he wanted to marry Rachel, according to Halacha, he wanted to marry Rachel, very good, and he ends up with Leah, he had no intention for Rachel, what happens? Should be married to her. So it's what we call mechach tos, it's a mistake. Total mistake. So he got to be married to her, because in the end he saw he did everything possible not to get swindled. He realized he got swindled, and he saw that through Leah, then he's going to have children through her and build up the Jewish people. Yeah, that's what my Rabbi brings down. Others say other answers, but he did everything in his power. So a person does everything in their power, within reason. They do everything in their power. They're involved in some business deal. They check out this, they check out that, they check out the other thing, right? All things look good. All things look good. So they're ready to pull the trigger. So let's say, okay, they pull the trigger. Now, how does it go? So you have to see, right? If it goes south, God forbid. If it goes south, you say, how did I miss something? How did I not see it or whatever? The answer is God didn't want you to. God wanted you to take the loss, right? You do everything in your power. See, according to this, no one ever invests anything, right? And part of an investment, any type of investment, it's a risk, right? It's a risk. And this happens, not just in business, but, I hear about this all the time. They're like, why should I trust you? That's right. Why should you? That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. But there's fraud out there. True. right? Very, very true. Spoke to someone the other day, rabbi somewhere. He's like, yeah, I heard about this person's the problem, and this. I said, yeah, it's a problem. I'm not going to say not, but there's a trust issue, and there are people got burnt. I know a number of people got seriously burnt. Yeah, people promised the world, gave them this, gave them that, took a lot of money from them, and they didn't produce. Right? They absolutely didn't produce. They were frauds. The person's got to be careful. Right? A person definitely has to be careful. But I would say, even if a person did all their due diligence, they checked everything out. Everything seemed to check out. And they still get burnt. What's the answer? God wanted you to lose. Right? Now, I can't answer why. Could be because of what you've done, could be what your soul's gone through. Right? But at the end of the day, we still have to put our best foot forward no matter what. And the saving grace is that if we're doing everything in our power, and it's not going, okay, there's a block somewhere. Either there's a block somewhere, or this is the way God's going to test the person. If a person knows, as we mentioned before, they're in a field, doesn't make a lot of money. So they know they're not going to make a lot of money. They know potentially they're going to struggle. Sometimes better, sometimes worse, but they know that. Okay. So how are they going to make ends meet otherwise? Okay, but they understand. If they're in a field that should make money, and should go, can they take into account 6 months down the line is going to be a recession? Unless it already started before, we're not necessarily going to see it. It's not their fault. It could be, change of power, change of governments, other things. Other things can happen overnight. Overnight. My Rabbi's family in Russia, they were very wealthy. Russian Revolution took over, money was worth nothing. They lost everything. Overnight. That's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. So, yeah, it sounds pretty depressing, right? But I would say, at the end of the day, you got to do what you need to do. You got to do the best you can do. But what do you have to do more than anything else? You got to pray. That's what you got to do. Moshe Schneider, my Rebbe's Rebbe, would always say, to his students that you want to have any success in learning, it starts in the morning when you pray. That's the most important thing. And he would tell them that if you don't get up on time, don't go somewhere else to pray, because the other people that work and say, oh, see the student gets up late, so I get up late. It's a bad example. Setting a bad example. So Moshe Schneider told them, you get up late, pray by yourself. Don't go anywhere else, because that makes a desecration of God's name. But he said, all the success in the world, that's where it starts and it ends. It ends with prayer. Now, does that mean we're going to get everything we want at every time? No. Doesn't mean that. But when a person realizes everything's for the sake of God, everything I'm doing is for the sake of God, then you're dependent on Him. And that's what a person has to say. So today happened to be Rabbi's wife's Yortzeit, the commemoration of her death probably 11 years ago, 12 years ago. So someone was saying that when she was, she was alive, her parents were very close to the Chazon Ish of Avram Yeshaya Karo, with the blessed memory, and she only wanted someone, sitting and learning. And back in that day, you're talking, 70 years ago, 80 years ago, wasn't as common today, as today. And her whole thing was, I just want someone who's going to sit and learn. Her parents were wealthy. I'm willing to eat bread, drink water, have no frills. I want my husband to sit and learn. So someone mentioned, a potential match, and this person, sat and learned. But his parents, I don't know, in their store, whatever, maybe, sometimes during the year, it's no, I'm not interested. I want someone not going to work. I want someone who's going to sit and learn. So I went to the Chazon Ish. Her parents are very close to the Chazon Ish. They asked them, what are we going to do? This girl's never going to get married. There's nobody in this generation. Is going to marry her. So Chazon Ish said, don't worry. If that's what she wants, that's what she's going to get. And he made the match between him, her, and my Rebbe. But to the extent where in Lita in Lithuania, a yeshiva student comes in, I don't know, comes into a store, waiting in line or whatever, and the person looks at him and says, "Oh, you're first in line, back at the end." Right? They treat him like dirt, because of there were so many Jews that hated religion and went away from religion, right? So to marry someone who's gonna, who's a yeshiva student, or is gonna learn, X amount of years and this and that, they thought, like, come on, treat them like second-class citizens. Worse, treat them like dogs. They're like, oh, you're first in line, you go back to the end. That's what it was. So, to have that ideal, I mean, today, it's a non-factor today. Total non-factor. When Rabbi Cutler, blessed memory, started Lakewood, started the yeshiva in Lakewood, that, he built people up. That's the ideal. Sit and learn, as long as you can, and then, okay, then you're going to find something. And at all these girls' schools, right? Teaching them that ideal. That was like unheard of. Back in the day, 70 years ago, it was unheard of. Totally unheard of. Maybe you had the elite in Europe, the elite of the elite, but, for most people, to, sit and learn a number of years after marriage, unheard of. And who's going to marry these people? Call them parasites, other things, whatever, cockroaches, whatever, sponging off other people to help. Let them get educated, let them get real jobs. They were downgraded tremendously. It started a whole revolution. And that's the Torah we see today. That's the only way Torah survives. Right? It's the only way Torah survives. Yeah, so maybe someone was saying, like, she built this, the synagogue. I go learning everything, like every last thing. She was in charge of that, and she wrote a lot of his books, took his writings and typed them up and whatever. And unbelievable love for Torah. And she just wanted him to sit and learn. That's what he did. It's all his Torah, goes Torah. I read, I don't know, 30 books, 40 books. Now his Torah giant of the generation, but she took care of everything. They had notebooks after she passed away of kids growing up that she would I quiz them and this and that, like, he'd be sitting and learning, doing what doing that. Then she took care of everything else. But like again, in that generation, way back, that generation was like unheard of. Everyone was leaving Judaism like in droves, in droves. In fact, someone wanted someone to sit and learn, like it's unheard of, totally unheard of, and she did everything for him. So it should be a merit to her soul, on this day, etc. But but again, the way the way we look at things, you got to remember something that looks very good could turn out bad. Doesn't have to, and things that look bad can certainly turn out good, right? But this person had said that even if it's good, don't think it's going to be good. It could turn out bad. So when he lost his horse and this and that, and they got 4 horses back, they thought he was out of his mind. They thought he totally lost his mind. He said, now he's got 4 horses. So now he can do all kinds of other things, make a lot more money. Why should it be bad? Why should it be bad? So what happened? So his son got thrown for one of the horses, broke both his legs, right? So also looked bad. But he said, yeah, don't worry, it's also going to be good. Like they thought he was out of his mind. They gave him a knock on the door. Russian government comes in, the army comes in. They see him laying there and they left. Right? So what we see that is bad does not mean it's going to stay bad. It could very well end up good. Something that is good and looks really good could also end up bad. Right? And there are many, 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 many stories like that. But for this generation, before the Messiah comes, we're going to be turned upside down, inside out, and everything else in between. And the fight is going to be in proper faith and belief in God. That is going to be the fight. That is going to be, that is going to be the struggle. And we have to say time in and time out again, God, you're the one in charge. And we say during the day, you eat something, thank you for this beautiful apple. Thank you for this banana. Thank you for this steak. Thank you for, everything. Thank you, we got to my destination in one piece. Thank you gave me, I had to listen to a class. Thank you gave me this. That's what you got to do. That strengthens a person's belief and a person's faith. That's what does it. Even when things look really tough and they look really hard. Yeah, because at the end of the day, they don't stay hard forever. They don't necessarily stay hard for long either. It depends. Depends, on the situation. So I say, I've been in the same situation, it's been years. Okay. But again, it's not all bad. And that's the problem. People see things as just either, in extremes. It's either all good or all bad. That's not true. Totally not true. They're going to say, livelihood is suffered this way, that way, the other way. But guess what? You weren't on the street. You weren't starving. And if you were, okay, so, you had that difficulty. There are people that, have it a lot worse. Have it a lot worse. I know some people, they're doing odd things, trying to get their business off. Sometimes they had to go to certain places. They couldn't afford to stay in a hotel, whatever. They slept in the car. People have done that. So, it either strengthens the person or weakens the person because, a person can see after they've come out of, let's say, the struggle, what do they see? They can struggle a lot, and then all of a sudden gates get open. Many, many gates get open. Or even one, doesn't really matter. Yeah. Once they see that, you think the kid slept in a car? You're not even going to think about that, until, God forbid, the situation happens again. Right? And they suffer again. That way, let's say. But, we're living in the richest generation in the history of man. So, if a person's starving, there are conditions that can happen. Not saying not. Right? Definitely not saying not. But, in the bigger scheme of things, it could be a heck of a lot worse. It could be a heck of a lot worse. And even if we're living in a cream puff generation, we're very quick to say, oh, this happened, that happened. It must be this, it must be that. I can even lie. I get this all the time. It must be that's what it is. Who says that's what it is? Right? If you had a number of things happen all at once, different things, okay. Maybe. But, if it's normal type things that are not totally under onus, like beyond your control, it's normal wear and tear of life. That, sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's not. So when it says, like the farmer said to his neighbors, when they said it was a bad life about his horse, he says, yeah, we'll see. Yep. Yeah. I've seen it in my own life. I know other people have also. You think you're down your last $1.50, you don't know what's going to be, this and that, and then boom, something happens. Exactly where you least expected it. And then doors open. Now, it could be doors were closed for a while. Could be. Right? But what does that do, essentially? It does one of two things. Either it makes the person realize they can only rely on God, makes them stronger, 10 times stronger, or, God forbid, it breaks them. Now, a lot of people can get broken by it. Right? And it's understandable. I'm not here to judge. It's understandable. Because you just feel you have nowhere to turn, right? And what's going to be. But what if, let's say, someone's holding a whole bunch of good cards, right? They're holding a whole bunch of good cards. So when's it going to come to fruition? When's it going to happen? What's the answer? It should be coming soon. It should be coming soon, right? But it hasn't happened yet. Okay. Doesn't mean it won't happen? No. Doesn't mean a person's going to go bankrupt before? No. It doesn't mean that, right? It means the person's holding on to something good. It's going to turn out good. It's just a matter of when, right? And so they say, I'm holding on for dear life. Okay, right? But the X factor is God, and the X factor I should say it's an X factor. The most important thing, as we mentioned many times, is prayer. If you're not answered today, tomorrow, not tomorrow, the next day, whatever. You keep praying. And sometimes God will say no. Sometimes God will say, no, it's not good for you. Okay. So what do you pray for? You pray for whatever God wants from me. That's what should happen. I should be able to take care of my needs. I should be able to help others. Whatever. It doesn't always go the way we plan. But you still gotta live it, and you're still gonna go through it. But the more a person sees it's not dependent on me, and I'm just putting my best foot forward, the better off they are. I'm not saying you don't have expectations. You can have the greatest expectations, sit back and wait. You sit back and wait. Now, people say, isn't that aggravating? Yeah. Yeah. But when it happens, and let's say, for argument's sake, it should happen. So then when it happens, very good. So you can say, when it happened 2 months ago? When it happened 6 months ago? Who knows? Maybe God didn't feel you were ready for it. Now he feels you're ready for it. But the prayer has to come from the depth of your heart. Your prayer has to be that there's no one else out there. No one else out there except for him. And he can turn over anything at any time, any place. That's what he's got the power to do. We have to believe it. And we have to live it. Right? Something happened to me, recently I said, okay, you're the one in charge. Not much, not much I can do. Right? You're the one in charge. I keep saying the same thing. More or less. But hey, you're the one out there. You want to break me. But you're the one out there. You're the one out there. There's something, kind of nasty happened. And you're like, doesn't turn out bad yet. I mean, it should turn out good in the end. But, it's like people, after the Holocaust came to the States, kept Shabbos, right? They kept Shabbos and they didn't have a job on Sunday because they kept Shabbos. So there were people that would take their pink slips, and they suffered. They had a hard time, right? But some of them persevered. So what did some people do? They took these pink slips and they used it as decorations in their sukkah, right? They wanted to show, you think it's so bad I can't work on Shabbos? Okay, so I won't work on Shabbos, right? I'm not going to work on Shabbos. I'll have to find something else, and every week it's going to be hard. Okay, right? I'm not going to let that break me. That's going to be a source of pride because eventually I'm going to make it, right? I know God's going to take care of me for keeping Shabbos. So they used that as a badge of courage, right? Like a red badge of courage. They put up their, their pink slips. And they use it as like a whole, like a whole mural or something of, what do you call it? Decoration. Okay, some people, may not want to do that because it's painful, right? It's painful. So it's a question how you look at it, right? That gave them strength. Because that they understood, I'm doing what God wants. You gotta say, I'm doing what God wants. Look, I'm getting slaughtered here, slaughtered there. Can't make ends meet. Every week it's a different, gotta find a different job. No one's gonna hire me. Right? It eventually worked out. Eventually things changed. Doesn't mean it was gonna be easy. Right? But the ones that stuck to it, their faith was very strong. They built beautiful families. They built beautiful families because the most important thing was Torah. The ones that said Zoltan Shver to be a Yid, it's very hard to be a Jew. So the kids said, we don't want any part of this. Right? So they wanted just to make money. And when you make a lot of money, you don't have anything to do with Judaism. Very little. Right? So if they hear that from the parents, they say, oh, it's so hard, and this and that, they're not going to want to keep it. That's why a lot of people, lost their kids in Judaism for exactly that reason. Because they heard the parents keep saying it's so hard, it's so hard. But if they heard the parents say, yeah, so what? Want to make it hard? I'm still keeping Shabbos. I'm still keeping Torah, right? I'm still happy in what I'm doing. I'm still, singing and dancing, even though life is hard. But look at all the good. Look at all the good. So that a person should be able to raise beautiful kids that way. But if they're going to say this is hard, that's hard, the other thing's hard, and so kids are going to say, what do I want it for? Why would I keep Shabbos? I'm going to keep losing my job. Shabbos can't be that important, right? So what do? They give up. They leave it. Again, I'm not here to judge. It's a very hard test. Very, very hard test. But at the end of the day, again, God runs the world. God's in charge. No question. Imagine those people came out of the Holocaust and they survived and their emunah was intact. That's huge. Few of them that are still left in the world. Those are people you get blessings from. Ones still have tattoos. Still have numbers on their arms. The ones that are intact with the emunah. And they built families after the Holocaust, after losing everything. Yeah, they suffer in other ways, true. But, the fact that, they saw God every step along the way, because they would, everyone would admit it's no possible way, according to nature, we should have survived. Right? Everyone else dying like flies, why do we survive? Right? That's a good question, but, they're learning that they didn't survive for nothing. Right? They didn't survive for nothing, but their emunah was very strong. So when a person's emunah is very strong, they leave everything up to God. God, I got this, $1,000 bill to pay. I don't know where it's coming from, but can't worry about it too much. You'll take care of it somehow, right? You're in charge. You got to do your status. You got to put your best foot forward. Okay, very good. So how's it going to change? It'll change when you want it to change, right? But He's the one in charge. That's where the prayer starts, and that's where it ends. 100%. You can think on this. You can think on that. Plenty of things we can do to try and help the situation. But bottom line, He's in charge. That's the bottom line, right? And that is a huge strength. Huge strength, because you're not in it by yourself. You're not in it by yourself. It's like the guy, today I don't need to hear about God. I was on my motorbike, slid on some oil, went off the cliff, said, God save me. I reached out, there was a tree, motorbike got smashed and brushed myself off, no broken bones, no nothing, right? So God and I are pretty tight. So as Rabbi Weinberg told him, okay, very good. So who threw you off the cliff? Yeah, that's the answer. Things can happen in a good way, things can happen in a bad way. Or how it seems to us, is something bad. Going over a cliff is never good, right? Going over a cliff is never good. But guess what? God saved him. God totally saved him. Someone mentioned, an non-Jew, whatever, child engaged to a Jewish woman. What does God want? I have no idea. It's a test. It's an absolute test. I'm talking, it's not his fault. It's the fault of a Jew marrying a non-Jew. It's not even putting his stumbling block in front of them. It's not his fault. Right? But you gotta remember one thing. Whatever happens to our kids, we have the, best of our ability, if we raise them hopefully in the right way. Let's say he's a Jew, brought them up as an Orthodox Jew, there's no guarantee for nothing. There's no guarantee. Now, we get blamed. Parents will get blamed. At some level, but it happens to the best of families. That a kid can go off. Right? So, or multiple kids. I know stories of multiple kids. Right? We went off for different reasons. But I don't know, but it's not you could ask the question, it's very demoralizing. You could ask the question, well, what did I do wrong? I don't know if it's the person's fault. They'll get blamed at some level for it. That's true. That is true. But it's not a question, if you did everything you could to the best of your ability. We're not perfect. Parents are not perfect by any stretch. Right? Some better, some not. But at the end of the day, if we do the best we can do, and that's what happens. Okay, certain level will get blamed. Certain level will get blamed. Yeah, probably said, oh, I should have done this better. I should have done that better. I should have. Okay, we can second guess. We can second guess. But that's what the evil inclination wants. This is exactly what the evil inclination wants. See, you didn't parent well. See, you didn't do this. See, you came to Judaism too late. And then nobody listened. And then, all these things. You can second guess. That's what the evil inclination wants. Right? It's not a question of what I did or what I didn't do. If a person did something egregious, right? If someone did something, egregious, and that's what happened, okay, so they're more at fault. If they didn't do something egregious, again, it's all part of the test. It's all part of the test. Someone someone told me, their child got married, whatever, non-Jew, the mother converted. And the wedding was during the 9 days on Shabbos. Now, the 9 days means you can't listen to music. You're not allowed to listen to music, only a cappella, and you can't go to weddings. But this guy, I don't know if she explained to him about the 9 days or whatever, but specifically got married on Shabbos, the boot. So the question was, Rabbi, I have to go to the wedding. It's my son. I have to go to the wedding. Tell me what I'm allowed to do. I was like, all right, you shouldn't go to the wedding. But if you're going to go to the wedding, you're going to stay over somewhere, you're going to walk, they play music, you got to walk out, they do this, you got to walk out. Other things, you got to make sure you have food and carrying and whatever. That's a whole complicated thing. All right, easy questions, right? This is a complicated thing. But the premise was, I have to go. Okay. They felt they had an obligation to go. I understand. So where's like the compassion on the other side, which a lot of people don't have or care about. They're like, "This is what I'm doing. Deal with it." Like, come do it. And they did. Someone's gonna go visit somebody. No, sorry, it was a wedding. The wedding was gonna be on the 17th of Tammuz. 17th of Tammuz is a fast day, sun up to sundown fast day. Now the wedding was probably gonna be close to sundown because sundown is late, in a lot of places in the summer. So I said, someone, how could you go to that wedding? You're fasting the entire day. Yeah. Well, the wedding was probably after 17th Tammuz, right? Meaning that night. It's probably going to be after sundown, more or less. Oh, what about all the? It wasn't on Shabbos, so that's better. Not desecration of that. It's just everyone's going to be eating and drinking. All these Jews there in the 17th Tammuz. That's when they made it. They didn't care. They didn't care one way or the other. They probably didn't even know the 17th of Tammuz. Yeah. And then to boot, even if they could have jumped through hoops to go, let's say they could have gone, right? They could have worked it out. What does the sibling say? You're going to take away from the wedding? I don't want you to come. How does that make a person feel? Talk about being estranged? So they say, why did God do that to me? Yeah, it's a test. It's a test. So that's it. Like, either you're going to pass the test or not. It's not a question. It's not a question. Why is God putting me through this? See, those are the questions you should be asked per se. You got to look into your actions. Okay. Right? But that's not the question. The question is, this is the situation. It can happen. It can have nothing to do with you. It can have absolutely nothing to do with you. And if you're estranged from your son for so many years, it had nothing to do with you. Zero. Do you have to feel guilty? For a Jew, it would be worse. See, for a Jew, you got to educate your kids in the right way. And if they go off and other things, even if you do educate them the right way, yeah, you pay the price. You will pay the price. Now, some more, some less, whatever. But, we live in a very weak generation. So a person can always second guess. I should have done this. I should have done that. Should have done the other thing. Yeah, we can second guess. That's exactly what the evil inclination wants. It's like taking a gun and shooting yourself in the head. That's what it's like. I say you did everything you could. And even if you didn't, even if you made some mistakes along the way, okay. But they make a choice. They have the power to make the choice. If they make the choice, they make the choice. And you got to accept the choice to certain things. Obviously, you can't say are good. You can't have anything to do with whatever, but they make their own choice. Right? You make the bed you lie in. No one wants to hear that. Someone wanted me to go to an intermarriage. I said, I told you 20 years ago I wasn't going to go. I made it very clear I wasn't going to go. Can't you find a leniency? No, there's no leniency. No leniency. So what do? You take the flak. That's it. You do what you can do. What you can't do, you can't do. It's only a question how ticked off people are going to be. Yeah, that's what I would say. So some things you can't do. Okay, so what do? You know, what are you gonna do? You can bet. You can put your best foot forward. Okay, maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. But realize it's not his fault. It's the Jew that's who wants to marry them. It's their fault. It's their fault. Okay, you can explain why it's not a good thing. You can this whether it changes anything or not. Don't know. Sometimes it's already too late. Sometimes it won't matter what a person says. Right? Guilt is always good, but you know, it doesn't mean it's gonna change anything. So these type of things. Again, what's the most important thing? Most important thing is prayer, right? And prayer can do a lot. Prayer 100% can do a lot. Someone asks the baby's father should shiva if it's day one towards the anniversary, or go by the estimated forensic day. Oh, provided for their passing. I don't think they're already dead. They start probably tonight after the funeral. Doesn't matter when they die. Obviously a horrific thing, no question. Doesn't matter. I don't think it would matter when they died because they didn't know. They had no idea. They had no idea that they were dead. I mean, they might have thought, but they didn't. They only knew now. But the shiva starts. The mourning period starts. Whatever you have to mourn for, mother, father, sister, brother, God forbid, a child or a spouse, is when they get buried. Unless you have nothing to do with the burial. If you have nothing to do with the burial, let's say, I don't know, a person lives in a certain country, they can't get there. Or they're not going to go to the funeral. So they start sitting shiva straight away once they know the person died. Once they know the person died, they start sitting shiva straight away. In this case, they didn't know. They can start sitting shiva tonight. Yeah, they could definitely, after the burial, even if they were dead, right? I mean, all that time they were dead. If they were religious, they couldn't make any blessings or anything because, they're not buried yet, but they had no idea, so that wouldn't apply. So most likely, I would say probably the mourning period starts when after the funeral, after the funeral. Yeah, horrific, whatever. Just one thing. I'm gonna say we don't. Yeah, again, we don't know the ways of God at all, and a very hard thing. But if you see pictures of what was going on in Gaza when they were bringing the bodies to the what do you call it, to whatever, to the Red Cross. I mean, you look at these faces. There were kids there, there were women there. Like these are the innocent people. These are really the innocent people. I mean, anyone who saw any of the pictures of any hostages that were released. I mean, you saw the absolute fear in them. Fear. These bloodthirsty scumbags is what they are. And you had a mob of thousands witnessing this whole spectacle. God should avenge their blood, take care of all of them, right? Wipe them all out, and bring back whatever hostages are left, right? As much as possible. Most of them probably dead anyway, but whatever, just bring as many back as you can. But yeah, these it's horrific. But that would be the answer. That's what I think the answer is. They'd start sitting shiva right now after the funeral. But I mean, come on, a mother and two kids, two little kids. They did worse things. They totally worse things. Which we don't have to go into, but God will take care of them, right? God will take care of them. That we don't have to worry about. It's they die sanctifying God's name. That's bottom line. So they have a very high place in heaven, but there are no answers. There are no answers. Why them? Why not other people? Why did it have to happen that way? We don't know. It's divine decree, bottom line. Bottom line is divine decree. But it's pretty horrific. And not only that, all these people are going to let go. all these terrorists with serious blood on their hands that are going free. It's also is horrific. Nothing, there's nothing else to say. It's just they have to do this deal, but and get the hostages out. But like, the price they're paying, with all these terrorists, depending where they send them, they don't even have wherewithal now just to say we're going to send them here or send them there. They have no power to do anything. So, in that sense, Hamas is one. They got the upper hand, on that, even though they got almost totally destroyed, pretty much. But let's just finish them off. But it's tragic. It's then they get someone comes out didn't know his family was killed. Never found out his family was killed till afterwards. So like, I don't know, like these people are like scarred for life. It's nothing good. Nothing. At least there's closure. It's the only thing. There's closure. They have closure, but it's horrific, horrific across the board. I mean, today's very windy, rainy day. Rained, it didn't rain. It rained, didn't rain. Been a nice, storm this weekend. Also, so people were saying, yeah, you got like this torrential downpour when they're bringing the bodies back. Showing that yeah, God's in tears also. Yeah, they didn't want to have to do it, but whatever, he has to do what he has to do, right? And we just have to accept it. It's a hard thing to accept, but he's the one in charge. That's and that's what we keep saying, and that's what we certainly have to believe. There's no one else out there except him. So even though a person say, "Well, the only thing I can do is prayer," is pray. Prayer is worth everything. It's worth everything. The more I keep saying over and over and over again, God's the one in charge and He runs the world. It has an effect. It will have effect on the person. It can change a whole person's life, overnight. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm gonna stop here. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot me. You can find me on Facebook at Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, OrthodoxConversion.com, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Q&As, ethics for our fathers, Book of Leviticus. Send me an email, RabbiChaimKaufman@gmail.com, RBBI, CHIMCOFFMAN at gmail.com.